Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Rogan Smith and Kendrick Williams. We got an intern with us today, Mr. Nick Liebman. It's a very Bahamian name. And anyway, we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. So, Rogan Smith, what's going on?
Well, I have a big weekend. That's what's going on.
Well, yeah,
I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
I'm very excited about that.
Yes, Rogan Smith, ladies and gentlemen. You see, you got to. I'm old and dying. So
I know,
you can't, yeah.
as you mentioned on the break.
So you can't expect much of me, okay? Don't expect much of me. You're going to be disappointed.
Yes,
okay?
I've learned that over the years.
Good. So just, go with the flow, and then there won't be any disappointment, okay? Mm-hmm. So Rogan Smith is on Monday going to be bringing us a statue.
I don't know. How are you going to say that? How are you going to say that?
No, first of all, I can say what I like to say.
How are you going to say that?
I'm saying it now.
You have inside information. You have
I deep on the inside.
Do not, because
remember what you told me a couple minutes ago?
On Monday.
No, you're going to be embarrassed no matter what. Listen, you remember what you said? You get what you think about or whatever the heck it is. On Monday, Ken Smith.
He set me right up, Dre.
I'm talking to you. I'm talking to Ken now. On Monday, Ken Williams. Ken Williams, Ken Smith, Rogan Smith. Win Williams, yeah. She's going to be bringing us a statuette because, she was nominated for the Icon. She's an icon. Icon award. So we got to figure. So I figure maybe we can put a spot right here. Kendrick,
no.
We can put the spot right here, man. We can put the trophy. Let me see right here.
You're so silly. You're sweet, but you're silly.
You can't hear. I know you want to make that sound like clapping and applause. It sounds like rain, Kendrick. That's a bad version.
That's funny.
Okay, that's a bad version. Okay,
Kendrick, you wanted though. That was quick.
So you have a dress?
I do have a dress.
I know you check it with it on. Can I see? Can you bring it?
I could show you a picture.
Yeah.
Well, it's not of me. No, I can wait till later.
Let me see the picture, man.
I can wait till
I'm not going to be. Let me see the damn picture.
You see the picture. Well,
I want to see the picture.
It's not of the actual dress.
Well, what is it? An actual not dress?
Don't describe. I mean, it's not. Okay, I have to look for it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the dress.
And you did that thing.
What?
You have that thing on the back of your phone.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Boy.
That helps so much.
Kendrick, look at it.
That's like a stand.
And you know what? Only women have it.
Okay, so this is what the dress is going to look like.
You have one of those, Nick? Don't get it, otherwise you're a woman. Let me see the dress.
Don't describe the dress.
I won't describe it. Let me
Thank
see
you,
that.
Nick.
Let me see that.
Nick at night.
So all your bosoms are going to be out?
My bosoms will be contained.
No, then I think when I look at this dress,
it's slightly different.
At least one bosom going to be out. Okay? But it's a lovely dress.
It is going to be contained.
It's a lovely dress.
Thank you.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
I don't want to touch that. That's very feminine.
You are so silly.
Yeah. Okay.
It's helpful. You see this?
So anyway, Ken, you and I, just so you know, we in the same boat. We're unnominated. So we ain't bring no statue on Monday. Okay? We're so bad. It's not that we were not nominated. We're unnominated. Okay, they thought we were going to be. They nominated us and then took us off the list. So anyway,
I'm
congratulations.
Excited. Thank you. No, I'm just excited to have fun and see everybody there. So
I can't handle that kind of pressure.
I know. You actually made it to my column.
I did.
In a way, I didn't call your name.
Okay. What did you say? Because I told you I didn't see the column. I didn't.
Yeah, no, I was just talking about how my friend, he said he would not go to a show like this, because he doesn't want to sit there if he loses.
I can't handle it,
so that
man.
was you, because you
said no. I can't handle
it,
yeah. I can't handle No, I don't have a problem. I can't handle it, because you have to pretend.
I can pretend. My face could be screwed up.
Oh, congratulations. So, no.
So you'd have to read the column to know my reaction would be.
And it's funny, because I think they knew that I was traveling this weekend. That's why they unnominated me. No, unnominated. Okay. Okay. And they want people to be there.
If you were nominated, would you have come? Oh, you can always say that you don't want to be nominated.
Yeah. I think that's best, because I don't want to lose.
But what if you win?
I can't win if I'm not nominated.
I'm saying if you were nominated.
You'll never know that if I unnominate myself, if I withdraw. It's too much tension for me. I got a lot of stuff going on.
Why you'd be embarrassed to sit there after having
First of all, I'm not well, as you know. Okay?
Because you just told me.
All right. So if I go there, there's a possible chance of a heart attack or something like that because of the level of disappointment. I can't handle it. I live in constant stress. I live in constant stress. I don't need to add that to my stress.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that are for some people, and you see, like you got the dress, and certain things are not for some people. You know, I wouldn't fit well in the dress.
I don't even see you in a tuxedo.
Oh, I wear tuxes. I have nice tuxes.
You do?
Yeah, man.
I could see you showing up just like in the same outfit right here.
I probably would do that. That way, if I lose, no one will know I'm there.
you just
They'll think I work there. You know,
no,
who's the clown in the thing? But no, we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And like I said, we'll put it over here.
Stop saying that. I try not to even think about that.
You got to be positive. You told me that.
Yes, you have to be positive. I'm just trying to stay in a zone where I just think about having a good time and just seeing my colleagues, and that's it. Yeah.
So a couple of things we want to talk about, and we can bring Nick in on this. See, that's a thing.
Let me see. Nick, pass that to me, please.
Yeah.
Let me see.
That's a thing, but I don't like the bow tie thing.
Hey, I like this.
Yeah.
Very dapper.
Yeah.
You look casket sharp.
What's that?
Casket sharp. I can see.
Well, that's right. Well, give me the thing. You're right. I am casket sharp because that's how I'm ready. I'm ready, man.
I just put a little pink flamingo something right there.
What you did?
Like a pop of color. A little pink flamingo something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I would not, all I would do is I'd go check out the room ahead of time, whatever they have the walls designed in. I'd get a tux like that so I could blend in.
Ah.
You see, camo. Mm-hmm. So like if I don't win, they don't see me.
Okay. I have to see if they're going to put the camera on your face. You know.
They will. They're going to put it on your face, and you better look like you're happy. And don't look disappointed.
You have to do your face like this.
Yeah, I'll just be there like this.
Like you sleeping?
No, like I'm dead. Anyway, yeah. No, it's good fun, and it's good to get awards and have people recognize you and all that kind of stuff.
It's going to be fun.
But I just, I never recovered from that election. And so I feel...
Well, how old were you?
16. And I just have not recovered.
My God, that's what I thought.
I've not brought closure.
What was this, Key Club?
Key Club.
16.
And I've not...
You need to work that out.
It's too late. It's too late to work it out. Anyway, so we'll bring Nick in on this conversation. One of the things I want to talk about is you see what they're doing in CARICOM with the medicinal marijuana, which is just a kind of a cover for
they want to
because everyone could be sick.
Exactly. Everybody.
It's like getting a sick note. Okay.
Everybody had
I
glaucoma.
got a bunion. I hear it's good for bunions. So let me ask you. So Nick is in school. Nick is born in the Bahamas and is doing some studies in Oregon. And I think the weed is legal in Oregon, right?
Oh, that is correct. It is, and on most of the West Coast.
Yeah. You smoke the weed?
No, I do not.
Yes. You see that pause? Like,
I mean, you're not official, so you don't have to worry about it. It's not like you just answer yes or no.
No.
But it's recreational usage in Oregon as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, if you're 21 years old, you can just go up and purchase it.
Right.
No
and
questions
you're
asked.
21, correct?
I'm 21.
Okay. Can you bring us some of the weed? Can you go over there?
I mean, that involves getting through immigration.
No, you have to do Amazon. Soon it's going to be Amazon,
Yeah.
Just get it from Amazon. Yeah. They got everything.
And let me tell you something. When that happens for the Bahamas especially, and other places where you can get it on the Amazon, shipping companies are going to just blossom.
Yeah.
They're going to be all over the place.
2-day prime shipping to be fast.
Yeah. And people going to have like back orders. They're not going to run out. But so the weed is legal in Oregon. And, I thought there's a lot of ramifications for it being legalized in a place like the Bahamas. One of the ramifications, believe it or not, is a lot of the smaller guys on the scale. That's how they make their living. A lot of guys are selling weed.
Business legitimately.
Yeah, but not all of those guys can afford that. The big guys with the money are going to wipe them out, just like Walmart wipes out things. So they're going to you can have some problems because these are guys who are not employable necessarily, and they are making their little deal, cash with that. So I have a solution to this. Don't legalize it, but just pretend just ignore it.
Because you want to keep them employed?
Well, we got to keep some people employed. We don't want to unleash. No, what I'm saying is, if it's not, there are states right now and towns and cities and the police chiefs have just said, you know what? Philadelphia did it. We're not pursuing that any longer.
You mean if it's under a certain amount?
Yeah, these guys with
not
little,
if you have
a warehouse, But the reality is, it's got to come from somewhere. They're just not, just ignore it. Just say, you know what? That's not. Hey, there's a lot of other things they're ignoring around here. They're ignoring like going through lights.
Old boy, because
they're ignoring going through red lights. They might as well ignore that. I'm just saying, don't prosecute. That's all I'm saying. Don't
For small amounts.
For small amounts. I mean, but the whole thing about small amounts, and I don't know, maybe Nick, you can tell us how it works. If in order to get a small amount, you had to have a large amount. It had to come from somewhere. You had to have a field.
If you're selling it.
Yeah, it had to come from somewhere. So where does it, you can only grow 50 plants? How do they manage it?
No, but you're talking about people who are smoking it
and selling it. People are selling
Well, then if you're selling it, you ain't selling just small amounts.
A lot of people sell small amounts.
Yeah.
How do they manage? First, you can grow.
How do you know
in
that
Oregon, right?
he knows all that?
He's in Oregon, man.
The growing bit, I'm not sure how you can just grow it in your house. I will say it's very commercialized in the sense it's like a farm.
Right.
So you go out to like a field and then be like, hey, we have this amount of buds, and some guy will come in at 2 a.m. and spray the plants. So it's just like a normal,
You don't have to have a license to grow it. You
do need a license.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I'm saying you're gonna wipe the small guy out, who can end up doing some other criminal element like robbery. He's selling his little whatever quantities he's selling. He's getting a little couple dollars. If you wipe him out, that's a problem.
He's going to move to something else.
Well, like robbery. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying,
maybe that's already happening.
Well, maybe but I'm just saying if there's pros and cons in terms of that aspect of it, because at least now if it's legalized and someone steals their stash, they can report to the police. They don't have to just kill you.
You can't do that now.
No.
You keep my weed.
But it's interesting. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll also talk about they've had some conch poisoning.
Yeah.
Our guest is going to be Brent Dean. We'll talk some more with Nick. Brent Dean, General Manager at The Guardian, and get his outlook on things. I'm sure he has an interesting outlook. And we'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith, and our guest host this afternoon is Nick Liebman. And so we're talking about the weed. Got to get that out of the way first. Because it's serious. All of the Caribbean has voted. You remember Simeon Hall was here?
Yes.
And Simeon Hall.
We gotta get him back soon.
Yeah, Simeon. In fact, we should get him on because Simeon Hall is on the commission. He's a representative for the Bahamas. I think one of them. One of them anyway. On the CARICOM, that's the Caribbean Community Commission, or whatever they call it, committee, to discuss this issue. And as you recall, Simeon Hall, who's a bishop, has had a complete turnaround on this view. Because think about this now. Think about how, for the past, how many ever years, however long you've been born, however long I've been around, if you get caught with a joint, your life essentially is over. Meanwhile, Makosa over here getting a pint every day. Okay, and just walking and calm. It's no one is condoning either, but certainly we cannot be throwing people in jail for things. It's like saying, okay, and I know you don't necessarily agree with this, but I'm not going to call the name of this drink. High sugar, dangerous. I know a guy who got a stroke from drinking too many of these. Okay, we're not going to throw people in jail because you get a stroke from drinking something.
No, because it impacts him.
It impacts him, but so does that.
You know how I feel about marijuana. I've seen people have incredibly have slow timing, have delayed responses when dealing with
driving and all that. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I feel like they're not so alert. I have a problem with that, especially if I'm on the road.
And I agree with you 1,000%, except that it should be governed. In fact, this is what the CARICOM people said, that treat it the same way you treat tobacco and alcohol. You're not allowed to drink and drive. You're not allowed to smoke. Well, it's never going to just work for anything. But how's it being illegal working for us? It's not. So the point I'm saying is, you got these problems. Maybe you can control it, but why destroy lives? I know that people who are on it can destroy lives, just like alcohol, just like cigarettes, just like all of these things. Look at the opioid thing. It's crazy. Anyway,
I just feel like we have enough. I do understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a fan of any kind of drugs, marijuana, whatever. But
coffee. I
just feel like, if you're a coffee addict, I just feel like we have so many vices that we can't control and that people are just killing themselves with. I just feel like this is just going to be another one added to the list.
Here's the thing. We go back to the same thing we talked about last week. When it comes to these things and how it impacts other people, enforcement. Because in theory, driving is dangerous to other people, okay? But we don't enforce the rule.
Driving is dangerous.
Exactly. And why is it dangerous? Because one, we don't enforce certain rules, and laws and people just stopping in the road, people driving with their cell phone, people going through. We don't enforce anything. So really, the deal will be is if you're now going to legalize this or at least decriminalize it, and say, look here, you can't drink and you can't smoke and drive, then enforce it. If you can't smoke outside your house, enforce it. If someone's out on the wall sitting in front of the yard, enforce it. But that's our problem. But anyway.
Enforcement.
So the other thing was the conch poisoning.
Yes.
Yeah. Serious stuff. And I had that.
You've had conch poisoning before?
3 weeks ago. Remember,
that was conch poisoning?
That was conch poisoning.
Oh, I thought it was just like.
No, man. I had the conch. See, I think if I had the weed, it would have been better than the conch.
Yeah.
Or maybe I needed the weed for the conch poisoning.
Boy, every now and then it's just so funny.
It's the weather.
Right? Yeah. It's crazy.
The bacteria in the water and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Are you a fan of conch salad, Nick?
Yeah, big fan of conch salad. More conch fritters, actually, more.
Yeah, well, it's cooked, so it's easy.
Yeah, I like the conch.
But you got to have the conky conch fritters because.
Some people just put too much batter. They being cheap.
They're just fritters.
Yeah. Just fried dough.
Fried dough. There you go. Might as well be a donut.
With
some sauce on the side. You see, the U.S. is having a labor shortage now, which is.
Let me know why the labor shortage.
Really?
Well,
because they forced everyone out.
They have more jobs now than they have qualified people to fill.
They've always had that in some areas.
No.
In science positions.
I mean,
in STEM, in science, technology.
No, but they have like 6-point-something million jobs now. Sorry, Nick.
I'm speaking very liberally on the matter. That I'm not sure, but I've actually heard there's a big demand for more blue collar jobs because everyone's going to college and is like, I want to be a big name entrepreneur. I want to be a lawyer, but it's like, who's going to do the plumbing? Who's going to do the trucking? That's the problem.
That's exactly correct.
And by the way, also those people who are doing jobs that other people don't want to do. They're chasing out and those, migrant farm work. There's a lot of.
That's a hot topic.
Geez. Wow. So I don't know. That's crazy. I don't even know. I decided, Rogan Smith, and I've done a pretty good job. What really caused me to turn off from the TV is the most recent thing where I'm so sickened by the concern of the fact that he gets to appoint another judge.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
That just more than anything else. That freaks me out because it has a long-term impact. Okay?
That's so scary.
And I just say, you know what? I can't handle it. Yeah. I'm hoping something will come up where he can't, something like he bribed the judge to come off the bench or something. Yeah. That he had a sexual encounter with the judge. Something.
Boy.
Okay? That Mueller will come up with something before he can, whatever. But let me tell you how bad the States is right now. And I don't know if you follow a lot of politics, Nick. My thing is, as bad as Trump is, I can't deal with Pence.
Oh, my God.
This is my thing. We're in a non-thing.
It's a lose-lose.
Yeah. Okay? We're in a thing of, we just got to legalize the weed. Just legalize the weed.
Yeah. Mellow everyone out.
Just, especially Pence. Okay? When we legalize it, make Pence smoke some, man. That is my concern, is that as bad as he is, that guy... Do you follow politics?
Yeah, no, and I'll just say quickly, you're right on the nose. I go to a very liberal West Coast school, right? Everyone's just like, Trump's not great by any stretch, but I mean, Pence is just like, no one even wants to talk about him because all the problems that would come if he became president be out of this world.
Pence believes that you can go to these schools and have the homosexual removed from you. And and I think he said he went to one of those schools or something. This is the guy who said. I'm not going anywhere without my wife. Like a lunch or anything. It's just...
Remove the temptation.
Yeah. I can't deal with Pence, man. Pence got that haircut. I can't deal with it. Anyway.
You see, Bill Shine has been recruited by the White House now.
I don't know who that is.
Oh my God, the former Fox executive.
Oh, yeah.
Who was accused of sexual misconduct.
So what? The president's one.
and he brings him in as his assistant. He's Trump's assistant, deputy chief of communications.
They can talk about it. They can say you remember when we did that
and got away with it.
Yeah.
I just don't. Even if that's your friend, right? I guess Trump just doesn't care about his image. Why would you even bring somebody who's so tainted?
Do you see what is happening right now? What is happening right now is this. Canada, the most benign country on the face of the planet, they're the enemy.
Trudeau.
Okay? All right? And I'm going to go and talk with Putin, who everyone has said he interfered with the election. Okay? And, by the way...
He's a good guy.
By the way, I'm going to have a private conversation... Just with him.
Yeah,
No one else.
it's good.
The only one we're going to allow in the room is a Russian interpreter.
That's not biased at all.
Okay? So we don't know what Listen, Poots. I'm really glad you covered me on that, man. You know. But, you know, we're by
I don't
ourselves now.
understand him, boy.
I don't understand
I don't hate
everyone
Trump.
else.
I just don't understand him.
No, I don't understand
him.
everyone else because they're letting him do it. You know, the people like McConnell and
He inspires a great deal of loyalty, apparently. I mean, there's people like they just go down for him.
well, I think what you have is you have a hardcore, and I'm going to use this word, redneck base, or people who are making money, who they want certain who are making money, right? And so they just go. So the redneck base, they just hearing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the immigrants,
Get him out.
the blacks,
Get
the
'em out.
gays, just the minorities that take it. You know what's happening. Make my country great. Take
Great
it back.
again.
All that kind of stuff. They love that. Guns.
Mm-hmm. Lots of guns.
We like that. But then they also go. This is where they really stretch it when they go, and we're Christian.
Yep, that is.
That's where they really stretch it, because that's in their
No,
thing,
the
right?
religious vote's very helpful. It's a big part of voting.
And so you got that going on, and then you got him he just goes out there and goes. So Ken is a criminal. He just says it, and then you could come up with like all the people. There's no indication that Ken is a criminal.
fake news.
There's no thing. He's a criminal.
And that's the end of that.
And by the way, I'm not. I'm not. Okay? And they're just ready to believe it, huh?
He's like,
I'm the best, yeah. This is the one
He's
we're
completely
going to.
narcissistic.
I'm the elitist. I have a bigger apartment than they do. He said that.
Oh no, I didn't know.
Yeah, he went on TV and he said, why would they call themselves the elite? We're the elite. I have a bigger apartment than them.
Oh, boy.
I'm smarter than them. I have more money than them. I'm more elite than them. It's like
He's proud. He's proud.
It's like we're in third grade.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know
This
how
is a man who was like saying I have bigger hands and bigger this and what I mean. What do you expect? He's childlike
So
in the
you
brain.
go to Oregon, which is very liberal,
Yeah, more
but
or
it's
less.
also
I'm
got a little
surprised.
redneck element out there too, though, right?
Yeah, so the way it kind of works, and this is the case with like
Because you
most,
got your militia.
like talking about Seattle and Seattle and Oregon, right? So like the main cities like your Portland and your Seattle, pretty cosmopolitan. Everyone
Right.
loves each other, very
Yeah, yeah.
hipster.
Yeah.
Salem, where I live, very like liberal as well. But as you go further out into the country,
the
where you're
bush.
getting, less traffic of like people going through. That's when it starts getting kind of weird and a little more
Yeah.
red.
That's when we got people with a lot of weapons, and just don't pass this barrier.
That was it. Yeah, when I went to Puyallup, Washington, I saw a competition where kids ride sheep. Like that's what we're getting into.
Yeah. So the thing is, you gotta, how do those people generally in your environment feel about Trump?
See, that's hard. And another thing as well is like going to just a very liberal school is you honestly don't really hear the Republican side of things so much. It's almost like they're drowned out because it's such a liberal campus.
Right.
And I honestly think that could be a bit of a problem because you almost don't hear the other side.
Right.
You almost get a doubling down mentality, I would say,
Yeah.
where even though Trump's been messing up quite a bit, you get a lot of people being like, well, you know what, we voted for him and we won. So like, how's that going for you?
Yeah. Because you always have the young Republicans on campus.
Exactly. Don't get me
And
started on the libertarians
And you
either.
can tell them too. Yeah. Yeah, but see that. So yeah, we won. But how did you win?
Yeah,
With the Russians?
no one knows. As far as we know, Trump won exactly fairly, as he said.
Well, here's your hope. So when you do because you do a radio show, here's your hope. When you go back, you say to people, the only hope we have is
Marijuana.
that Mueller, well, the marijuana, that's going to be
got that in
it's a very important element in the
Swear
whole
he was
thing,
gonna
right?
say that.
But Mueller is going to blow it up wide open. Not only is he going to destroy Trump, but all the people around him, like Pence, who had to know what's going on. He knew about what the stuff that's going on. So total destruction. But the only thing is where are we now? What year is this with the Trump thing?
Oh, he must be second year, I think. If I'm not mistaken, you're on his second
Second
term.
year?
Oh, Trump, would you say?
By
yeah,
November
Trump-
it'll be second
Yeah,
term,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you can string it out a little bit to like the third year, and then it's tarnished, then maybe you got Pence for maybe a year.
A year.
What we got to do though is we got to give Ruth Bader, what's her name? Ginsburg.
Bader Ginsburg?
Yeah, her, and whatever rest of the Democratic or liberal justices.
Yeah.
We got to get them to weed. Keep them alive,
Yeah.
okay?
Hey.
Because you can't afford to have seven. I mean, these people. How do these guys sit on a court where they're sworn to be, uphold the Constitution and vote against the rights of people. It just seems. I mean, I'm sure they have a justification for it.
Because their personal feelings and their politics trump their vows.
Yeah, but you see, there was a time when you had a lot of, I saw this movie just the other day again, Hidden Figures. That's a great movie,
Yeah.
3.5. And did you see when the woman was making her case? You got to check it out.
I have no interest in watching it.
It's a 3.5 stars.
That's
great movie.
Great, but I have no
Why is that?
interest. It doesn't appeal to me. I mean, to me, I like to hear a great story, but it just looked boring.
It's also it's very long too. I should warn you.
Yeah, but I saw it. It wasn't. I watched it. I watched it again. And I thought, wow, powerful stuff. But anyway, the main thing is, especially to show you how smart those women were. I mean, they were just geniuses. But this woman made her case before a judge in Virginia about wanting to go to a all-white school to finish her engineering, and she gave him an argument, and that judge, who had said to her earlier, this is Virginia and we're the law of the land, not the federal law. When she gave him her argument, he thought about it and he said, you know what? You got me. And he allowed her to go to school. So a judge, while, certainly, the South is a whole other story, is supposed to have some degree of the argument, the discussion as opposed to how I feel. That's why we make them, That's why we put them out there. But these guys, boy, tell you. Anyway. So our guest again is going to be Brent Dean. I don't know if Brent's here yet.
Nope.
We'll have to give him a buzz. And our guest intern, guest host is
I
Nick.
know, right?
Nick Liebman.
Nick the intern.
I'm always, anytime I hear the word Nick, I got another rhyme for it, but I don't want to say it. Anyway, so
when I was on the swim team, it was Racing Nick. Be careful, he's got a big heart.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you got it. Thank you.
All right. So anyway, we'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with my dear co-host. You're becoming dear to me,
I was going to say, Kendrick.
Well, the thing is,
today. I'm a wench usually.
Well, you're usually a wench. But the thing is, you're dear to me because I got to make sure I'm talking to Ken now, that we maintain the association with the trophy winner.
Stop.
Because you see,
set me up.
we got to be on her side. We got to be with her because we don't want to get left behind. But the only thing you have to accompany like that is we should do a little practice with her on the late because we'll play that music. By the way, let me ask, because I know this has never happened before in the history of nominees.
What?
But you got to thank me and Ken in the thank you speech.
My speech, what I would have given was in my column. I have to send that to you.
But you did a thank you speech?
No, because you don't even read my columns.
No, but I told you got to send it to me. I don't read it. I don't get the paper.
So,
I do encourage you. Every time I've read it, I said great stuff. Right? I tell her great stuff. And I've given her compliments many times. What I'm saying, though, is when you get on the stage, and you can do it this way. Let me tell you how to do it now. Okay? Say all your stuff, and then as they chasing you off, and by the way, I got to say thank you to Canada. That's how they do it like that. Okay? So now you're straight.
If I get the opportunity, I will do so.
That's how you do it. We can put that statue right here. All right, now.
Sorry you had to sit through that.
No, he's not sorry. You can even thank Brent. Thank Brent Dean as well.
And Brent.
Yeah, and Brent. So, and then we'll know what that means. That'll be our joke.
Yeah.
Okay?
Got you.
So our guest this afternoon is Brent Dean, who is known to us for many, many years. And
Lisa, look at
known to us, yeah. And both of our fathers were policemen.
Yes, that's right.
My father and his father worked together. In fact, he used to tell me some stories, which I can't tell you. It's top secret.
Okay,
yeah.
got you.
Okay. Did he tell you the stories?
He told me some stories.
Okay, so let's just keep that between us. Okay.
Absolutely,
Yeah. We'll go to our grave with those stories. We're not even going to discuss them amongst ourselves.
No, we don't want to get in trouble with it.
No. So Brent is now the general manager of The Guardian.
That's something.
And how long have you been doing that now? How long have you been?
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
Boy.
That's an incredible rise. I remember when Brent was the Tribune reporter. Was senior reporter? Were you a senior there?
Just the staff reporter.
But you became senior when you went to The Guardian.
Yes. But I stopped at Love 97 for a period.
That's right.
Did you think when you were doing reporting, because I did reporting, I never envisioned it. I never even envisioned doing reporting, to be honest with you, that you would get into the management of the management world of journalism?
No. When I started in reporting, I thought maybe I might get into the opinion side of it at some point. But no, I didn't.
Yeah.
How did you? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
How did you rise, in the ranks to become general manager at the Guardian?
So I went to the Guardian in 2009 in January. I was a staff reporter, promoted to senior reporter. I was promoted to deputy news editor,
That's right.
and then associate editor, and then 4 years ago general manager. So
Because you're like 19, right?
I know, right? He looks like a baby, right?
That's what kills me, you know.
I'm 1 month away from 38.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well,
Young guy.
I'm a couple months away from death. So it doesn't, I was speaking to a guy there. I said, one guy, you have to put these things in perspective, right? I say, boy, I feel like I could go any year. And he's like 70-something. He says, how do you think I feel? I feel I could go any second. So you can put it in perspective. But so anyway, so now, did you decide when you were in college or, whatever, that you were going to go into journalism?
Well, I did a communications degree in Canada at McMaster in Hamilton. So it was a bunch of things communication related, including a bit of it, some media. But I hadn't locked myself in, but I was always fascinated by media. So when I came back here, the first place I worked after graduating actually was Atlantis for about a year and a half or thereabouts. And then my friend Paco Nunez, been friends for 20 years. He was news editor at the time.
That's another Atlantis offspring.
Absolutely.
I love Paco.
So he was after I left Atlantis.
Switch that around to Nick.
Yeah, I said to him, he said to me, what do you think about trying journalism? And I said, maybe. And so he said, come and talk to Mr. Marquis. And so I came and talked to Mr. Marquis, and I said, sure, I'll try it. And that's how it started.
I mean, I don't know about your thing, Rogan. It never occurred to me one time that I would be a journalist. In fact, I don't even know if I knew that term, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously you know it, but it just never was on a list of things that I thought I could be. It only happened that basically I had a degree in political science and looking for a job because, I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and I thought, okay, they'll make me assistant ambassador. I know they didn't have an ambassador opening right away, so I'll be assistant ambassador. That didn't come through, That didn't come through. So what the heck am I going to do? And I figured the only thing I could do is write. And that's how I ended up in. But it was no intention to go into that. How did you get into that, Rogan?
Almost accidental. I went to what was then the College of the Bahamas, and I wanted to study law, not because I had an interest in it, but because I was rowdy and I thought I could do well in the court.
You are rowdy. Until you're not thinking, it is.
And then I was like, this is stupid. I have no desire to do this, and changed my major days before class started, and I fell in love with journalism. Yeah. It was just like that.
So a lot of people here you doing film, right?
Yeah, I'm a film studies major.
Yeah. So you're going to be a director?
We'll see. I'm experimenting around.
The main thing is don't forget us. We want to be famous. I'm trying to look out of my future, man.
Is over,
don't you started here.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and when you get the the Oscar, and I want to thank Ed Fields for giving my first big break.
Off the stage.
Yeah. I wanted to be my first big break. Rogan and Ed. All right, so you're down at the Guardian now. Let me tell you, man. So first of all, it's fairly, I would call it, an empire in a sense, as far as you've got the newspaper,
2 newspapers.
Freeport News. Yeah. Well, we don't think about that much, but we do. Sorry, Freeport people. This wasn't Freeport News.
All of your bosses used to run the Freeport News.
All of them. Yeah. So yeah. Did Clunas ever go down there? No.
No, Clunas was with the Guardian before, and before he died, he was a copy editor with us for a long time.
But Edwin Lightbourne,
Charles Carter was
Charles Carter. Did what's his name?
Fred
Tony
Sturp's
Capron
over there now.
Fred Sturp's in charge of the Freeport News now.
He is. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Capron was.
Is that recent? Fred?
Fred's been in charge of the Freeport News about three years.
Okay, I guess we don't see the Freeport News here, which is
interesting. You should read the Freeport News.
But y'all don't distribute it here. See, get it together. That's a plan now. Put it on the strategic thing.
We need to send one to your house every day.
Y'all sending the Guardian over there, right? They could send the Freeport News on the same flight that come back. So you got the Freeport News, the Guardian.
Yes.
You got Star.
Yes.
And that's and then you've got 96.
Hot 91.
96.9. Yeah.
The Guardian
Yeah,
Radio.
that's a
Hot,
radio.
hot.
Hot's an affiliate, but it's not
Okay.
officially in the.
So
Guardian.
Hot is like how we have 98.1. Yeah. So you got that's 3 stations essentially then. Hot being one.
in the building.
Yeah, in the building. That's how you have some of these are affiliates,
Yeah.
not wholly owned. So you
And
know
then your
you run a-
partnership with the Cable Bahamas.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
partners with Cable Bahamas for the last, I think it's 8 years, creating what was NB12 at first and now R News.
So here it is. The bottom line: you're 19 years old, and how many people you have to manage? How many people?
We
are
have,
there?
if you can include the sales force, the full and part-time people, is about 130.
Yeah, so it's big stuff.
That's big.
It's big stuff.
Yeah. That's the biggest part of the job. With management, you never know what you're gonna deal with every day. Some things are personal issues that you have to address with staff, or issues of how people are working together or not working together. But the good thing is that we got a good group of people, and the turnover is not crazy at the audio.
Yeah.
What was the transition like for you? Because I would imagine if I'm sitting next to Brent Dean and we're co-workers and all of a sudden now you're my boss, some people might not take that the right way. I mean, how has that transition been for you?
It's been good because I've spent my time there working. I've done almost everything and been able to interact with the different parts of the business. So people know me. They know I'm serious about it. They know I care about the company. They know I work well with others. And I think when people see that in you, they're willing to work with you. And somebody has to be the boss. And it's actually not so much fun being the boss.
No,
so
it's
you
not.
get the blame for everything. You get the stress. So they like that it's deflected onto me, which I accept and I enjoy.
But you play it well because I say this as a compliment. You're not out there like that. You know what I mean? You do what you have to do. But let me ask you a question. This is a big question. Probably, I imagine the biggest part of your job is you've got probably 20 or so radio personalities that you're going to have to deal with.
I think more than that.
More than that. I was making a guess based on how many hours a day, but probably you're right. You probably got 30, maybe 40. Who knows? And in this business, and I see it. I'm not calling any names. People tend to get big
Real
in
quick.
a place on top of their shoulders very quickly. And I've always felt. I remember one time a fellow, not journalist, but a fellow guy in broadcasting was telling me he owns a radio station, and he was telling me that one person came to him with an agent. This is in the Bahamas now. Now, listen, I'm not trying to
He's stepping his
diminish.
game up, man.
I'm not trying to diminish, the need to have an agent, right? But it would be like if I'm
we
working.
ain't there yet.
Yeah, but let's say I'm coming to Brent for a job, for a position, and I come with my agent. You know what I mean? It's going to be kind of awkward, Brandon's going to say, why don't you just, why don't you and I just work this out? Because you cannot be in your mind that big that you need an intermediary. You're only getting about $10, okay? So how do you manage those egos? Because I imagine they're coming fast and furious all the time.
I think the biggest thing is in selection. You want to select the right people. You want to set the ground rules. You want to have an overall culture where people know the boundaries. We have freedom of speech in the country, but there's not freedom of speech in a radio station in the sense that you can't say any crazy things because there are rules of defamation and slander. There are also rules of IRCA about what you can and cannot say. So the person has to be willing to work within the rules. We don't call people in the morning and say, you have to say this morning or have this view. But we try to select sensible people and to let them know that, this is all under the Guardian's brand. And when that doesn't happen and we talk to people behind the scenes, we don't have our business out in the street. And if at a certain point a person doesn't want to work within the overall structure, then obviously we'd have to part ways.
Yeah, but a lot of people come in sensible, but after they smoke
That
the
is
weed,
true.
it always goes back to the weed.
I know, right? Things change very quickly.
Then all of a sudden, all they want to do is eat up all the cookies, So I'm saying, so I imagine you must see that. You must see where people come in very humble, very hungry for a thing, and then once there's some popularity there, they start to,
Well, this is a business, and we have these various businesses under our media group, and we expect people to act like business people. And that means you have to show up at a certain time, you have to know the rules, you have to work well with others, you have to follow instructions. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be a part of the business very long.
Have you had instances where if you've you've been placed in a precarious situation where you had to let somebody go, and have you had advertisers threaten to leave the Nassau Guardian because they were there for Ed Fields, they were there for this person? And how did you deal with that if that happened?
When you have a talk show, there are certain people who are linked to a show, so they actually want to, it's not necessarily always the whole station, but they want to get into this slot.
Right.
So if you change hosts, then you do have some turnover, but a lot of people, they know us, they know our brand, and they just wonder what you're going to do next.
It's a transition
So they just want you to stay in dialogue with them, let them know who's holding on interim, who's going to be the next person, and many of them stay. A couple might leave, but for those who leave, more come and join.
Chances are the people who leave wanted to leave anyway, so that's just an excuse to leave. I mean, and not necessarily for the same reason. They might just feel like, financially they can't do it, and they just need an opportunity. They didn't want to disappoint the person. We're going to take a break. We're coming back with Brent Dean, who's the general manager of the Nassau Guardian, and we'll be back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here with Rogan Smith, Icon Award winner.
Stop.
Nick.
I strangle you.
Sorry, would you like to say with
Nominee.
Icon Award
Nominee.
loser? No, I'm not talking about any nominee.
Nominee.
No, everyone's a nominee.
What happens on Monday if I don't?
Well, then, we commiserate. Okay? And you know what we may do is get one statue just to put it anyway. Ken Williams is here, and of course Nick Liebman, NL. And we have Brent Dean as our guest. A question I wanted to ask you is, you've got, and I used to work with the Guardian, newspaper, it doesn't matter where it is. So every day, a story is written, and every day, and I'm sure it's every day, someone calls you and says, what you doing, and this and that, and the next thing, the complaints. How do you deal with that, and how do you, I assume that there must be concerns that you have on opinions that are written by people who are, say, staff journalists. Let me just use that phraseology. Mm-hmm. And is there a line there? Because it's a kind of a weird thing, right? It's not, you don't see it a lot, where you have people playing multiple roles in a media place. It happens a lot in the States. I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, but there's a difference between, say, a talk show host and a news reporter. Right. Where does that line get blurred when we're trying to play multiple roles?
Here in the Bahamas, our media companies are very small, and people, and they're multimedia now. So the Tribune Group is in radio and in newspaper. We're in all of them. So we're in the newspaper business, radio, television. The reporters themselves are reporters, so they report, they write. Some of the editors do commentary too, right? So, but not all of the editors. So just in our case, one or two do some commentary. Now we don't have an abundance of talent in the Bahamas, and we also don't have an abundance of budget, right? So in the States, you have some people, for example, they make six figures writing a column once, twice a week, right?
I do that.
Yeah.
I'd be quite happy.
I just haven't decided to write the column yet.
That can't happen in the Bahamas.
When I decide to write the column, believe me, I'm bringing my agent, Brent Dean, and I'm going to be making six figures.
So we have people that do double duty. What we try to do is, what we focus on is that the paper is the paper and the news is the news. And you have to have a space in there where everybody gets their voice and the stories are covered and questions are asked of all sides. And I think if people see that, they will regard you as a paper of record and have respect for you. They may not like this today, they might like some stuff tomorrow, but in the balance, they'll say, you know what, they beat up on a lot of people. But I think now in commentary is commentary. So you either can agree with somebody, disagree, or have some feelings in the middle. But that's always going to be weighted in a certain direction, and that's different than the news.
But should I be concerned, and again, we're not picking on any individual, but should I be concerned that those who comment and say edit, that it leaks over into their story management, if I want to use that word, right? Should I be concerned about that, or is that, is there enough discipline there to deal with that?
If that ever were to happen in an operation, it becomes obvious. Then you have the Fox News effect, right? So it becomes they use the news as a very blunt instrument, and I think in both newspapers that's not happened. And I think there have been people who, like the PLB, for example, love to criticize the Tribune and Mrs. Karen and say this or that. But Mrs. Karen has in her paper, and we have in ours, stories from both sides. You have good days on one side, bad days on the other, and that's been the case. The Guardian's going to be 174 years in November. The Tribune, I think, is somewhere around 120 years or thereabouts. And both papers have made it their policy to give space to the differing views and the debates of society. And I think that nothing has changed with that.
It's a funny dynamic. The other thing I wanted to look at is you talked about the talent pool. And I think that the way that we structure things here, we have to be inventive. Because, as you say, we don't have the budgets. We don't have the talent pool. And it's not that there aren't talented people, it's just a small place. But we do have talent pools that it seems to me that you could restructure. So, for instance, you have the College of the Bahamas, right, where you have a huge range of experts, of economists, political scientists, public administrators. For instance, let me give you an example. Just recently we had a budget debate.
Yes.
You don't see, for instance, people from the College of the Bahamas Public Administration School, if there's one, commenting on the nuances of the budget. It's usually just kind of, visceral commentary based on, increases and decreases and all that sort of thing.
Why from the politician's perspective?
Right. Why aren't we, for instance, digging into that pool of people who you don't have to have them on staff, but they can be contributing writers to the newspaper.
Where Ian Bethel Bennett sends us pieces regularly. He also writes for the Tribune, from what I see. We're very open to intelligent commentary, but the problem you have here, Ed, is there are a lot of people who are scared. And I'm not putting this just on the College of the Bahamas, but there are people who at the bar, we'll have the greatest conversations and they'll have great insight. But you say, man, you can write a column for us or send a letter. Boy, I won't get victimized and this and that. So I think because the Bahamas also has an education problem, so they're not like a big bunch of bright people all over the place in terms of understanding these deep issues. But we want to be a place where people can be educated, and I agree, some more of these educated people should be willing to step forward and put out your ideas, and don't be afraid all the time,
So we go back to I want to just harp on that for a while. You have a situation where, all right, people are afraid. Well, you can have stories without bylines. Okay, and I'm just wondering, in some of these things that are not time sensitive, where someone, in the old days, in the days of journalism, and still to some extent now, reporters with big budget companies sometimes takes weeks and months to write a story. Why isn't it that you can't, essentially ask people, and they think there are people out there, develop a story on this issue, on that issue, or whatever, and then you get them, you paid per column inch or whatever the agreement or contract, and so you develop this structure so you have a little bit more depth in what is reported.
One of the things I'm the opinion editor too, so one of the things I do is work with people who want to become writers, want to be contributors, and people always come and say, I want to do a column, and I'm like, sure, right, well, why don't you send me a sample? So I see a sample, I'm saying, okay, let's start with that. Writing every week, they have about 10 things they really want to say. Week 11, they're done. They got nothing else.
Well, the problem is, and I say this to people all the time, they need to just split that up in 10 columns. Because that's the other thing, right? I mean, and all the papers are guilty of it. We have the longest columns in the known to mankind.
Nobody's going to read that.
Yeah.
Nobody's reading that.
My editorial section, so the actual editorial is the space holds at max about 850 words. No, not 1,000.
Okay. 1,000.
So, but my regular range that I write is between 400 and say 650, and I find that's digestible.
Yeah,
for
that
people.
is very digestible.
Yeah. I mean, I see people who, like you say, they've got a book in their mind about a topic.
I'm not reading it.
And they, it's a half a page.
That much block of text, that just makes my eyes weary.
Basically, I could just get past the headline. So can we encourage? Can you encourage? First of all, and having done it, you've done it. Rogan has done it. I don't know if Nick has done it. When you write a column on a weekly basis, there is a lot of stress with pumping that out. I don't know how you do it on a daily basis. That's like, no wonder you're calm because you're almost on the tip of suicide. By the way, did you know that journalists at one point, they were in the top 3 of suicide?
Wow.
I did.
Okay? Because of the stress
pressure
level
from the
of
deadline
pumping that
and
stuff
everything.
out every day
Yes.
to perform. And your name is on it. But there is a lot of stress in this. Can't we encourage them to shorten those things, be more concise, hit that argument, and then you know what? The next column, use one of the other 9, one long page paragraphs that you're going to use.
Yeah, I always tell people who are about to write for the first time, try to be at 1,000 words or fewer.
Yeah.
People, when they look at a piece, the first thing they do is look at the length. They don't even get into the headline yet.
Yeah, absolutely
do I have
right.
the time for this? And if it's too long, they just move on from you.
Precisely.
It's I don't know why we do that. It's something that I think will transform the way that people, I told you, we were talking the other day. USA Today specifically designed its paper because they know that people today do not have that attention span. They have one story in each section that goes to the next page.
Yeah.
Okay?
And
I don't even know if
it's
she's like,
very
Nick, I
easy
see
to
Nick
read. I
frowning.
love it.
I don't even, did you notice that? Did you know
USA
that?
Today?
It's USA Today still around.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Biggest
You
circulation
read
paper in the
USA
States,
Today?
Yeah, I read it USA Today, and I don't know how I feel about it though, because if you're shortening it down, it's kind of being like, well, then you're kind of conditioning people to read less, almost.
They're already reading less.
But then
So
You want to condition to read rest? Make a long story. You'll see how much less they read.
But I think the Atlantic is one of my favorite magazines. Probably is my favorite magazine.
Yes.
And they have a lot of long form stuff. I think long form is a genre unto itself.
Yeah,
And
it's like book.
Yeah,
It's a book.
Yeah. So if you want to go
Short
to that,
stories,
but
right?
for regular newspaper stuff, I think shorter is better. Shorter.
People are running around. Newspapers, by the way, you know why evening newspapers died? Because, well, a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons is because people went home and watched TV news.
Correct.
The other reason is because they couldn't make it out to distribution in time because of traffic, believe it or not. But the bottom line is they were competing with the evening news that was a half hour. Okay, concise, and you got all the information you needed. Why am I going to read this stuff,
And that half hour is really about 22 minutes of actual
Absolutely, when
news.
you add in those commercials.
That's why I always tell people, I don't read. I just wait for the movie. Okay?
Are columnists paid at the Nassau Guardian?
Some are, many are not. So the people submit, and if it's intelligent, it's not libelous. It has to be written well if you're going to be a regular columnist. I'm not going to spend all my time dealing with primary school grammar. So we run stuff, but most columnists, it's just they submit.
They just do it for the love of it.
Yeah, for the love of it, but not just that. Some of them want to get their name out there.
It's branding for them.
Brand, exactly. Some of them are aspiring politicians, so they want to get out there. But we try to have a good selection of commentary so that you'll find in our paper on one day maybe 5 or 6 different views on the same thing from different people. Some that may be pro-government, some harshly anti-government, some in the middle. So it's all over the place, and which is a good thing. I don't think people could say we just have one voice in the paper.
You're an editorial writer.
Are you the only editorial writer? Or the primary one?
Overwhelmingly the editorial writer, yes.
I do enjoy the editorials.
Yeah. Now, so the danger here now is when people see an editorial, it's very sometimes you pick a side. You pick it. It's an opinion.
Yes, it's
you
an
pick
opinion.
it. You can't have an opinion of two sides.
Right.
You pick an opinion. Does it jaundice how people feel about the paper generally?
It shouldn't, because we don't. The reporters are allowed to go get the news. They know what news is. We want them to get both sides and try to have a sensible context to what they're talking about. But as you said, the editorial column is an opinion, and that's I've heard people talking about it needs to be more balanced. It can't be balanced. Opinions can't be balanced. Opinions you have to
one
take
day I'm with you and the other day I'm with you. Yeah.
No, an opinion is an opinion, and it's for a reason. And I think editorials have to be. They should be smart. They should be something that people read, and even if they disagree with them, they say it's from the reasonable place. It's not.
It's analytical.
It's analytical, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, this is a tough question, Brent Dean, that I can put you on the spot. But we don't have to specify it to the Guardian. Are we, I'm putting me in this, are we happy with the standard of journalism in the country today? Are we happy with that?
It's a good question. One of the thing that concerns me most about BAME in journalism is, kids don't want to enter anymore, especially on the print side. So what we find
on TV.
Ain't no money in it.
They want to be on
but
TV.
you know, Rogan, there's a lot more money than when you and I were doing
I'll
this.
say that much.
Yeah, a lot more.
But compared
they're
to
starting
other
off.
professions, and a lot
Yeah,
of
but
kids
they're
who
starting out.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you come back from college and you've incurred some debt, you didn't have anybody to pay your bills, you have a loan or whatever, the money just in the business just doesn't cut it compared to other professions.
Cub report. This is what I've always said, and I don't know if it's changed. Cub reporters, it's a silly term. Cub reporters essentially are on par with cub reporters in the States. The big issue is growth. How do you
Yes.
grow? How do you become the guy? You
There's
know.
only one
But
GM.
you know, if they think of it that way, then we'd have less of a problem because they're coming in and some want a lot of money
They
right
want to
away.
be Dan Rather.
But
no.
you know, when I started at the Tribune, it was an entry level salary,
Yeah. You
better
as
believe it.
as it should have been.
Cub reporter.
You don't know anything yet.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you grow and you grow and you grow. And the lovely thing about our organization, because we are so multimedia, there is room for growth.
Right.
There's jobs I can give right now in Freeport, or you can get jobs within the newspaper. But you have to show the growth and you have to show your ability. You have to show you're interested. You can't just be a 9-to-5er, disappear, nobody can find you
Right.
afterwards, and you don't care, and you expect a salary increase.
And
you
the
know?
other thing, and I mean, I've never thought about this until this moment actually, because it's always been accidental. In theory, you know, it's either going to be for you and you're going to move through the ranks, or it is probably one of the greatest springboards that you could have.
Absolutely.
So you're not trapped into this cub reporter salary for the rest of your life. You're going to get more exposure than you'll ever get working at,
Absolutely.
say, you know,
Connections
a
with
pharmaceutical place.
movers and shakers.
I've seen the whole Bahamas because of journalism. I mean,
Yes.
all of the main islands. It's been a great time, and I've also you can be behind the gates of Lyford Key today.
Yes.
You could be in the ghetto covering a murder. You could be at a business conference. You could be at Bahama or Atlantis. You could. I mean, I've interviewed former prime ministers of countries and
Yeah, yeah.
met
Yeah.
billionaires and all these things just because
All
of
of us
journalism.
in this room, except Nick, because he hasn't started yet, have gotten to where we are because of our particular jobs in journalism.
Yeah.
But going back to the thing about the quality and the qualifications.
Yeah.
So I find, and I don't know what this is, and I think, and by the way, this is going to sound bad, and I'm going to get flack for it, but it's good the way it is. When you have a situation where you have, say, a lot of journalists coming out of the College of the Bahamas, and I'm not condemning it. What I'm concerned about is not the skill level that is coming out, because you got to have the skills, is the exposure level. Okay? Because in order to be a really good journalist, right, you've got to have a kind of, in my view, a broader view, a broader perspective than just here. It would be like being in, Biloxi, Mississippi, and then, you just stayed in Biloxi, Mississippi, and then you want to go work for the New York Times.
Right.
It's not going to work out that
Right.
well.
Right.
So what do you say to that?
So the first issue for me is just the low level of people who want to come in. Just very few people are wanting to come into the print side, especially. The second issue is writing ability. The country has a crisis of writing ability. Bahamians are not good writers, and
they're not.
that causes editors to spend a lot of time trying to
doing
fix one story.
surgery.
You could be over an hour on one story that's only 400 words. But the third part that's a big issue is intellectual curiosity, and that relates to what you were talking about, the exposure. You have to be curious about things. You have to be reading. You have to wonder.
Right.
When I listened to some of the parliamentary secretaries who were fired the other day and what they said, they know nothing of our parliamentary system.
Yeah.
They were saying silly things over and
Right,
over.
right.
And so there's nothing wrong with having a deficit of knowledge, but you should know that, and you should try and read and speak with people who
Yeah.
have knowledge. And a lot of our kids, they're coming into the workplace, and right away you don't see the intellectual curiosity, and you're not going to advance if you don't have that in journalism.
Because, it's one thing to... we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll be right back. I completely forgot what I was asking. It was about... I know it was about journalism. Yeah, the curiosity thing. Is, and going back to this worldview, and, I won't use the example, but I see too much... I want to get that speech... I'll get that speech. I'll put some he saids, some he commented. There's no callback to something previously. There's no, the one thing I hate, and, listen, we do this often enough that, I can take it now. But the one thing I hate is when they call me, someone calls me and says, I want you to give me a comment. Now, they've already written their story. Okay, and they've already got their...
you in the story now.
Because you know why? Someone said you have to have a balanced story. So a balanced story means, like, can you give me a comment so I can say it's balanced? You know, it's nuts.
You know, one of the things, our structure is a part of what's to blame for that. So we have newsrooms have probably 5, 6, 7 reporters if you're lucky in the main section of a newspaper in the Bahamas.
A lot of pressure.
At least 2 stories a day, and if there are not a lot of ads in the paper, you got a lot of space to fill. So we're really looking for quick turnover material, and some simplistic stories can be quicker turnover than more in-depth things. So the financial structure of journalism in the Bahamas helps to cause some of that.
Yeah. I mean, it is. No, I know it's structural,
understand that.
And that's why you wonder. I mean, look, I don't know what the readerships of the newspapers are, and I know they compete on that. But let's just say it's 30,000 each paper. I'm just using a number. Okay, that's a substantial number of readers. I mean, it's it's not small fry, and I would think that you're going to hold on to those people. Let me tell you how I read the newspaper. I read the headlines. Right now, I'm basically reading the headlines. I'm not getting that deep into the story.
I read the story.
Okay, because I can read the first couple lines and then, realize, okay, I get it, and that kind of thing. It's not something that keeps me wanting to see the next paragraph and the next paragraph. It's information, but it's not gripping.
It depends on the story.
Yeah.
I was just reading the story with this American tourist that was recalling her rape in San Salvador. I read that from top to bottom.
Yeah. Those things,
You know what stories have been grabbing me lately, and a lot of Bahamians aren't grabbing onto this, nor some journalists. This may be a record year for air arrivals for the Bahamas. And that's quite striking coming out of the Great Recession and how bad things were. And every time I see numbers, they're not like 5 and 10% increases. They're off the charts.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing for the country because cruise business is a great business and we should try and grow that. But the big money is in stopover.
Yes. And the thing is, you use it and you say that, and then, so what happens is we hear that number, but how much digging into that is it? Like, why is this occurring? Where is this coming from? Is it because of the hurricanes? Is it because of the strong economy in the United States?
The tax cuts.
All sorts of things, right? You don't really get the rationale. And so what's going to happen is when it goes back down again, no one's going to understand why it went down.
They're going to blame the government.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the things that people always talk about, and I'm going to talk about it now, is the proclivity to report on crime. Okay? Now, we have crime. We know that. Is it the only story, though?
Well, the last 10 years, and I actually have written quite a bit on this, we've had a historically bad period of crime. So there have been, between 2007 and 2017, there were 5 murder records in that period. We got over 100 murders per year, and that's been the norm. Our murder rate per 100,000, which is how it's measured, is high. We're in the bad category of the world. So that story is needed to be told, and it's helped to bring to bear pressure on policymakers. Is it the only story? Absolutely not. And I think the biggest story this year, but the biggest story is one, that we're having a, 20-30% decrease in homicides, which is a great thing. But also, again, this boom in stopover visitors and what that is going to do for Atlantis, for Baha Mar, for a lot of the mainstream properties. And it's not just going to cause guests to come here in those places to do well, but it's going to cause other people to invest. And I'm hoping that that's a sustained thing. The American economy and the Canadian economy seem very strong, and those are driving that, along with what you just said, the closures in the Caribbean because of the hurricane.
I want to ask you this. I know Rogan disagrees with this on this immensely. So I don't feel that you should not report crime. So let's get that out of the way. I honestly believe that it's part of our fabric. You got to report it. But there's also some nuance. Okay, we're a tourism economy. We live in a global, digital. You say boo, and they know about it in Salem, Oregon. Okay, so the question is how do we report on it? Okay. If you pick up a newspaper in New York City or Chicago, Illinois, you've got a national section, an international section, you got a global, whatever. They got all these sections, and crime might be in the second section or the fourth page, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that you consider, given our economic driver, in how it's reported?
Sadly, something has regulated that. So news is new information, and what is striking. There've been so many murders in the Bahamas the last decade that a single homicide these days is not as striking anymore.
Yeah.
So for it to be the lead story,
Gotta be
it's
like
probably multiple homicides,
yeah.
and oftentimes these days you don't see murders necessarily above the fold or maybe even on the front page.
Right.
I was about to say that very
Yeah.
same point. I've seen murders in the Nassau Guardia on the inside, and you guys are focused on something completely different. So.
And that's not to diminish the life that was lost.
No,
No, absolutely not.
No. Because the thing is about a murder story too, which is interesting, it's usually more headline than story, because the reality is because of our laws, there's nothing you really can do except report on Brandon Dean was killed.
Reaction from family members,
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of stuff. If the
You
person
can't
known
get
to
into the-
police.
Depends on the murder, though. Sometimes if a murder happens in a way and in a place where there's a lot of information, so
Right.
witnesses or many
Right,
witnesses,
right.
then you're going to get a longer story
Right,
that's sometimes quite striking.
Right. Well, listen. Where does the Guardian, the media, what would you like? You're the general manager. You're the driver. First of all, are you satisfied with where you've taken your company? And if not, and maybe if so, what's next?
I think for us, the thing I'm most proud of is there's some structural things behind the scenes that we have organized better over the years, and it's that stuff that makes the flow better. So there are things that people would not see, and I think we've improved that. And I've been hiring at The Guardian now probably 6 or maybe even 7 years. And we put together a good team. And when talent goes, you try and keep some that you can, but some you can't, and you try to bring in new people. And when I bring in new young people and I see them doing well, that's something too that makes me very proud. So where are we going? We've created quite the multimedia operation, and it's now, how does that work within the digital economy? That's the new thing for every media company. How do you monetize that? Because what you don't want to do is throw crazy resources at something and get no money back. That's the road to bankruptcy. So we're working through those challenges, as every media company is doing, but we have all the talent in-house. There's not a skill set that we need that we don't have. We have a lot of people doing double duty, which is a good thing, because that allows them to grow and make new income.
You mentioned earlier about young people coming in, but now let's flip that. So you have people like, say, they worked in the hotel industry, or the legal, whatever, and they are retired or they lost their job. Is there room for senior people to come in? I mean, obviously they don't want to make $10,000 a year, but is there room for people who have a great network? They need to make some good money. Is there room for that?
Yes, but the problem we always find with that, the person may have a great mind for an area, let's say business, but you still have to be a writer. You still have to know how to turn over coffee quickly. And there's a skill to that. And that's something that if anybody who wants to be any type of writer, I will recommend to you anywhere in the world, do some time in journalism. It will kill that writer's block foolishness altogether. A good editor will beat that right out of you. Like, you're not leaving here until you give me this. You may cry, you may want to jump off the building, but you have to give the copy, and it's every day.
But so let's talk about the everyday. Is there room, though? Because we always talk about this, and I don't know if anyone even cares about it anymore, but we talk about the lack of investigative journalism. Okay? I mean, we have a lot of commentary, we have a lot of reporting, but we still have a lack of digging deep into a thing. Is there room? Is there the resources? Are there the resources to allow someone to come in who is working on something, and it may take them weeks, and they're not pumping out something every single day? Is there room for that type of individual?
A lot of people have criticized reporters for that. That's a structural issue. So let me explain what investigative journalism is for the audience. You may have a person or a group of people who work on one story or two stories per year. They go really deep. They travel. It's a very, very expensive operation. And at the end of it, the lawyers and the publisher may kill the story and say, no, we're not writing that. We're publishing that. So here in the Bahamas, we can't throw away $100,000, $200,000 on a story. Now, that being said, reporters do and editors do.
But you could scale that down.
Yeah. They do dig deeply into things. And so there is some here. But none of the newspapers have hired investigative teams because the resource pool is just not there to hire 3-4 people to go on one story or 2 stories per year. But we do encourage reporters to dig a little deeper, check something out, take some time, but they still have to do their 2 stories.
See, but that's the thing. See, that's the thing.
That's the issue.
Even if let's say you pay someone who's more senior, who doesn't necessarily need, a 6-figure salary. I'm not saying that, but someone who maybe $25,000 a year or whatever the deal is. Yet this is like my little cookies.
That is
like when you're eating the
so
cookies and the
annoying
thing.
to me.
See, everyone has their
it's
annoying
driving
thing.
me crazy.
Feel it. Give her that, and let her drive herself crazy.
Right for the
If you pay someone, say, $25,000 a year, and they're going to pump out something maybe every month, maybe every quarter, that isn't something that you see. Because let me tell you something, Brent. I see one of the things that I see as a big, big problem. In fact, it is probably the biggest problem in the country, and I don't care. I know Rogan Smith doesn't care about it. We're not politicians. Is the civil service? It is the thing that is holding everything back, dragging everything down. I said to someone the other day, if you went to a private sector organization and you needed something from them, and it took 4 months. Well, first of all, it's not going to take 4 months. You're not going to get to like 1 week.
That's right.
Okay? We have and so we have all these departments. There's a lot of material, okay? And there's a lot of digging that can be done, and yet we don't seem to be focused on that to the extent that we should. Is there not room for that kind of thing?
There is room for in-depth reporting, but as you said, it has to be done digestibly for this financial model.
Right.
So we had, for example, years ago, Thea Rutherford used to write for us, and she did
Who's
more.
that?
Thea Rutherford.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't remember
she,
her.
she went away to graduate school.
Okay.
She did more in-depth pieces that weren't what I would call confrontational investigative journalism, but they're more in-depth.
Yeah.
So she would go on to something and she'd write maybe 1-2 pieces a week.
Yeah.
And so
That's
there
true.
is room for that.
Okay.
But it's not going to be like
rewarding.
Spotlight, the movie that won the Oscar. That's a good idea with investigative
Or the
journalism.
Watergate thing.
And I want everybody to look at all of those reporters they saw in that movie, give them each a salary of probably $80,000-$90,000, and multiply that out, and then the travel they did, and see exactly how much that story cost that brought down the Catholic diocese in the country, in that state.
But they got the revenues from the movie, so we got to do a movie.
and there's the man over
They're
there.
the filmmaker right here.
We do the story, Nick makes the movie. Listen, I don't know if there's anything you want to. I want to thank you for coming on. You're doing a very I don't know how to describe it. I think I want to say almost undercover, because there's a lot of things to invisibility.
Yeah.
There's a lot of advantage to invisibility, and I don't mean that in a non-complimentary way. I'm assuming that if you wanted to be more visible, you would be. That's easy to do. Yeah. But you're doing it in a very humble, unique way that's getting the job done, and we got to say congratulations to you. I mean, there aren't a lot of people who came from the reporter ranks. Who are general managers of media empires. So I want to say congratulations to you, and I'm sure you're going to take it to the next limit.
Thank you. And what I like about what we've done is some of the challenges in some of the areas we've wandered into. It's been challenging at first, but we've worked together, we've come together, we've built them, and it's great to see them now very successful, and they have more staffing, and they're working well. And you remember how it started in those days when you're like, oh my goodness, how is this going to work?
Well, let me tell you how far they come. When I was at The Guardian, I remember asking for a tape recorder. Okay. I remember there was like, okay, what do you want? What is that? Do you want? I said a tape recorder. It costs like, $9 or something like that. Well, no, we don't have the money for that. It was, it was some rough, you got to catch a jitney to go down to the court. No car, It's just a lot of stuff, but it's grown, it's moved on. One last thing, the collaboration or the not unity, but what's the association of the media houses and journalists in general. There seems to be a kind of standoffish view in terms of press club. Yep. There seems to be a kind of disunity, more competitive thing with the media houses. How do we change that to the benefit of the profession?
I think we've had of late a lot of people passing through. So I've been in this now. This is year 12. Rogan's been in year
17 or
yeah.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've stayed in it for a long time. But
Right.
you have a lot of people, they come in, they just want a job, and they
Yeah.
1 year, 2 years, and they move on. So if you have a big group of people like that in media houses, then the solidarity wouldn't be there. But they started the press club. They've done events. People have come and participated. They've been
Right.
well covered. So hopefully it continues and
Right.
collegiality grows.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, Brent Dean,
This is really
thank you,
good.
very good. Nick Liebman, thank you very
Oh,
much
yes, Nick. Nice meeting
for
you.
your insight on the
The
weed.
director.
I missed that.
Yeah,
We got, next time we come, we got to talk about the legalization of the weed.
Yeah, and me personally, I fully support it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, me too, and Rogan too.
No, I.
Yeah, she does. Okay. And also Ken Williams. And finally, just want to say good luck to
Thank you.
Rogan Smith
Thank
on
you.
the winning of the. I don't know why do you can't really say good luck if you won.
What's the
But
award?
Kendra,
The
I mean,
Icon Award.
Edward.
No, but which
This
Okay,
is media
for
category,
media
right?
category,
So
yeah,
he keeps
yeah.
saying this winning thing, trying to set someone up. I
Yeah,
appreciate
setting
your
no one up.
confidence and everything.
Yeah,
It's gonna have a good time.
It's not a big thing.
Have a good
Okay,
time.
and just remember,
I-
as they're doing the
is
music,
go-
want to thank Ken and Ed.
Okay.
Okay, and Brent.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Brent.
Nick.
I didn't do that. Nick. I didn't-
And you see, you just say that for the fun, you see? And it relaxes everyone.
Yeah.
Who the hell is Ken and Ed and Nick and Brent? Okay, thanks a lot for folks. And Nick is going to be here next Thursday.
Yay.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe even next Monday. And we'll see you back on next Monday, folks. Enjoy. No,
The
Independence
holiday's
is
on
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
so we'll
Yeah.
tell you that
We'll
then.
talk to you guys.
Have a good one.